Hello, this is Kristen Volk, and we're doing a live broadcast right now on Hand in Hand's Facebook page. So I'm just here, to answer your questions. So it's a question and answer session, and you can write in your questions, and I will get them in a comment section on here. So feel free to go ahead and send me some kind of question you have about parenting and your children, and please make sure that you include the age of your child or children. That would be helpful. So while people are doing that, writing in their questions, I will tell you a little bit about myself, maybe my journey with Hand in Hand. I'm outside of Denver, Colorado, and I have two children. I have a 14-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. I'm a single parent, and my son has multiple disabilities. And I came to Hand in Hand because I found parenting very hard. And I struggled because my family had experienced multiple instances of trauma in a couple-year time period, and I didn't know how to handle the behaviors that were coming out of that situation. And I was reaching out for help in all kinds of avenues, and we were all in multiple therapies, and it really wasn't seeing a shift, and the behaviors were really too much for me to handle, truthfully. So once I found Hand in Hand through a friend who just happened to mention it, I took an online starter class, which is a 6-week class that's done online. You also receive a weekly mentor call with an instructor. And I did that call for 6 weeks, and it started to turn things around in a major way. And I was so encouraged and so hopeful. I jumped into certification and became an instructor. And now I do Hand in Hand with my family on a daily basis, and I love it. And I can't imagine my life without it. So that's a little bit about myself. And so I'll just wait and see if there's any questions that anyone has for me. So far, we don't have any questions listed. And Jana, maybe you could confirm that you're someone from the Hand in Hand corporate office is here and that you can hear me and this is working well. It says that it's live, so I think it is. So I'm just going to wait to see what kind of questions come up. And it can be about anything, any age child, any challenge that you're having. Okay, so I do have a question, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I have a question here. I have a 5-year-old son who refuses to sleep in his own bed. How can we convince him? Okay, so it's time to move to his room. Okay, so it sounds like he's sleeping with you and you wanted to go to his own room. That's a great question. And I understand, I actually co-slept with my children as well, and needed them at some point to go to their own beds as well. So what I would start with, or what I'm really hearing, is that your son has some big feelings about moving to his own bed. Like, that's kind of how I frame something like that, right? Like, he has these feelings about sleeping on his own. And in fact, what can many times happen for children, especially with sleep, is that it can be the longest period of separation from us completely on their own. So it can be a really scary experience to actually go into sleep and do that by themselves, especially if the habit is to be with someone else. So it's a it's a big transition, and it's a really scary transition for a child as well. And so I think it's really important to, start with like understanding what is this situation like for him, because our experience is probably very different, right? We just want some freedom and a good night's sleep. And so recognizing that he's probably very afraid, and that he's, in terms of going into his own room and going to sleep. So there's many things you can do. So we have several tools that we use with Hand in Hand, or that Hand in Hand has, that can really support this situation. So the first thing is I would recommend getting a listening partner, because what a listening partner is a way to share support between two adults. It does not involve the children at all. And it's just a way for us to talk about, express, share, be witnessed around our challenges around parenting. So it's a place that you can, like with this particular situation, you can, talk about how much you want your own space. So whatever, and there could be multiple things happening there. I'm making some assumptions, but there could be multiple challenges there for you, and things that you worry about or think about or feel regarding your son going into his own bed. So, what are some of the challenges with that? And also, what are some of the fears or concerns that you might have? So in terms of him moving into his own room, will there be a sense of loss for you, and heartache and sadness about losing that connection as well? Because it's a big transition really for all of us. So having a place to work on our feelings and our thoughts around a situation can help us to approach the actual situation with the child in a much more compassionate, open way, that we can actually listen well to our child. And so that would be really step one from my standpoint. And then the next thing I would probably recommend, we have these 4 tools, parent-child relationship tools, and you can really use any or all of them, but I would really start with probably stay listening. And I don't know what your, how often your son's feelings come up, but you can start with, helping him to express his feelings around going into his own room. So with some kids, just the mere mention of something like, sweetheart, in 3 nights, we're going to have you start sleeping in your own room from now on. Like, even mentioning it can be enough to bring up feelings. No, I don't want to go in my room. I don't want to sleep here. I want to stay with you. And what stay listening is actually listening to his feelings, accepting those feelings, because he really is scared. He really doesn't feel secure, doesn't have the confidence enough to go into sleep. And so listening to those feelings can be extremely helpful. And then so I would start by mentioning it and see if feelings come up just by that. And then you have the actual situation of, that's him, okay. Okay. So that's actually really great that he can get to his feelings easily like that. So I would start with, maybe 3 to 5 nights ahead of time, telling him this is what's going to happen. So you're setting an expectation, and you set it with warmth too. Like, just like I said, sweetheart, in X number of nights, you're going to be sleeping in your own bed, and be ready for those feelings to come back. For him to offload those feelings to you. And what you want to do while you're stay listening too is you want to offer eye contact. You want to offer warmth. You don't want him to bury his feelings in you. So if he like falls on your lap and buries himself in your lap, you want to try to avoid that. So if it happens, you just might want to kind of let it happen for a few 30 seconds or 10 or 20 seconds, and then you might want to move over and try to make some eye contact with him, and just because you want to signal to him in his limbic brain that you're there supporting him, that he is actually safe. Because when he goes into his feelings, he is truly feeling scared. And depending on his background and his history and so forth, the experiences he's had in life, that fear can be quite extreme. It can be like, oh my gosh, the wolves are surrounding me and this is the end. And so, especially something as scary as being on your own at night can be extremely scary. So what you're trying to do is communicate non-verbally, for the most part, to his limbic brain that the present situation of him going into his own room is actually not a scary situation. And you do that by listening to him and helping him to feel your presence. That's the most important key. You want him to feel your presence. So you do that through eye contact. If you say something, you want to have a warm tone of voice. You want to have soft facial features, and something appropriate that you could say. There is an article on our website called "What to Say During Stay Listening," and hopefully that can pop up here so you can see that as well. It's a great article because you want to communicate mostly non-verbally, but the things you say you want to be, effective. So something like, "I know it's hard, sweetheart," would be a great thing to say at that point, because yes, he is really very much experiencing a fear, and it is hard for him. And so, but you're anchoring him by communicating to his limbic brain that he's actually safe in the moment. And that's what's going to help him to heal his fear around going into his own bed, into his own room. And I would recommend doing that several consecutive nights, especially if he can get to his feelings. And that will help you in the night that you actually decide that it's time to go to his room. And then once then you've got that night that, okay, tonight's the night, then you're going to kind of do something similar where you bring him into his room and you go through your bedtime routine, obviously beforehand, bring him into his room, and his big feelings will probably be just as intense, just as wild, just as big as the first time he cried, and maybe even more so. And that's okay. It's actually, you're really helping him. His fear around going to sleep at night by himself is probably more than going to sleep at night by himself. It's probably related to or associated with, other times in his life that he needed support and didn't have it. Other times in his life that he felt alone and it was really hard for him. And so I think that's another important thing to keep in mind. And again, that's something that you might want to get some listening time on. It's really important to be able, because this is hard work. This is emotional work. And so being able to get support for yourself and get some listening partnership time could be very important. And if you don't have a listening partnership yet, there is an article too called "How to Find a Listening Partner" that could be helpful to you, that gives you ways to do that. And you can also put something on the Facebook page. But so back to just the listening, it would be the same thing. When you're back in his room, you would, put him to bed. You could sit there with him for a couple minutes and say, "Sweetheart, now it's time to go to sleep." And he's probably going to have some big feelings. It helps to anticipate that as well. And you can sit and listen to those feelings. You don't have to have this hardcore routine around, time for bed, turn out the light, I'm leaving, and then you go. You can sit and listen to those feelings. This is the healing process that allows him to actually heal the fears that he has and the hurts that he's experienced in his life of being alone and not feeling resourceful enough or confident enough to go into sleep. So listening, that might take several nights. I mean, I have lots of clients who it takes 3 nights is like a pretty common scenario, but there's also no guarantee of how long it might take. But that's a really good starting point. There's also lots of other things you can do around. I'm just going to see if there's other questions here too, just to make sure that I'm spreading things out. Otherwise, I'm happy to spend more time with this particular issue. Okay. So another thing I would also recommend, besides the stay listening, is special time. So let's go back to realizing that he's experiencing fear and a lack of confidence to go into sleep by himself. And so one way to support that as well is to give him special time, which will build his sense of connection with you, that gives him a felt sense of you that he can take with him into sleep. And so what special time looks like is it's a set amount of time, and you actually use a timer and you name it, and you will then do, in that time frame, you do whatever your child wants to do. And your main role in that time frame is to just delight in your child. One of the ways I've heard it said is to luxuriate in him. And what that does is that, one way we talk about is that it fills up his connection cup, so that when he feels more full with connection, he can take you with him into his sleep. And that will also be a very supportive process for him as well. So those are two great first steps. There's also our other tools are play listening and setting limits. And the setting expectations was very similar to setting limits. It's the same process. But those are also tools you can use. So Hand in Hand also has a great sleep course that can help with that. And it's only, I think, $39. That is potentially something that you could look at. And there's tons, I know, of articles on our website as well, and blog posts about sleep, because it's a very common challenge, because it's such a hard thing for children. But that's a good starting point, and it's a great question. So thank you for asking that. So I do have another question here as well. Advice for diaper changes. Almost 2 years old, hates them, and attempts to make it playful seem not to help. Okay, so, and that's a tricky one, because if the child's moving around too much, that could be hard, right? So diaper changes, almost 2 years old. Okay. So I guess my first thought on that would also be, and I think people who work with me get to learn that my first thought usually is like, what kind of support can we get for ourselves? Because I can't imagine how frustrating that must be to have a child not want to have their diaper changed, and all that comes along with that, right? And so getting listening time on your frustration and the lack of cooperation from your child would be something, I think, that could be very valuable, that you can like have a tantrum or have a good cry with another adult and not put that frustration on your child. And so could be very, very helpful. The next thing, I would also recommend special time for sure, because what children's, so some people might be surprised to hear this, but children's natural state when they're connected is actually to cooperate. And so they want to cooperate with us. And when they're connected, good and connected, and that connection goes really is internalized, it's a very deeper level of connection, they're going to have a stronger sense and need of cooperation as well. So special time would be very important here as well, to sort of just build that foundation of helping him move in that direction. And then the other thing that I would probably recommend, I'm a big fan of play listening, and I use it a lot in my family, and it's been an important one for me. So the one that comes to mind is the way I sort of think about and frame play listening is like, how do you turn the tables on something and create laughter? So maybe with a 2-year-old, if you could, it sounds really silly, but like maybe you put on a towel or a diaper, pretend a towel is a diaper, something to that nature, a blanket or something like that. And just, start to be like, oh God, I can't get this off. I don't know what to do. I can't get this off. It's stuck on me. Some form of that. Or you could just say, oh, this is dirty, stinky, stinky, stinky. And you might jump up and down, you exaggerate, you get really dramatic, really goofy, really silly. The intention with the play listening, the start of play listening is to get laughter going. So you want to do something really silly and goofy around diaper changing. And what you're trying to also promote, so you've got the laughter, you want to give the child the more powerful role. So what you would want to do is to promote the child wanting to change your diaper. Because whatever is in his way of being able to, for him to be able to change that diaper, get that diaper changed, there's probably a lot of feelings around there, right? And maybe it has to do with loss of control, or, you're going to be the better judge of that because you're an expert on your child. And so, this is a playful way, not in the moment of the diaper change, but to actually start to shift whatever his big feelings are around that diaper change, so that he gets to be in control while he changes your diaper or your towel or whatever it is. And so that could be a playful way to start to break up whatever his feelings are. And you could also have some fun in the process. And I just want to make sure to remember, if you do something like that, that you would keep the laughter going. So you're not trying to teach anything. You're not trying to, make something happen. The really two main components is to keep that laughter going, because the laughter is going to break up his feelings, and you want to give him the more powerful role so that he can overcome whatever, challenge is there for him. So, so you just want to keep doing the goofy thing you're doing. You want to keep doing, oh, it's stuck over here. I can't get it. Oh my God, I'm so sticky. I'm so sticky. Something like that. Could be really fun for the child and actually heal whatever is in his way as well. So hopefully that's a good, and there's, I know Jana is putting some things on the comments here about articles and so forth to help get things started for you too in play listening. So I'm going to go to the next question here. This is another person who's asked one question already, which I'm happy to get back to, but I'm going to let someone else ask a question because we are getting lots of questions here. So we live in the snow belt, and getting out of the house with my 2.5-year-old is a total nightmare. Getting her dressed and out of the house is seemingly never-ending process. I've tried making games of it by seeing if we can get dressed by the count to 10. I give her a choice to dress herself or I dress her, and even resorted to leaving her behind if she's not ready. Nothing seems to work. Any advice? Okay. I know that scenario extremely well. And my daughter was hard to get out of the house. So, and in the snow belt, you have lots of layers to put on, don't you? So there's obviously something, I don't know. Many times there can be lots of tension about getting out of the house. Again, I would recommend listening time on that, because the tension we carry affects our children because of how we're connected through our limbic brains, the emotional center of our brains. And so the tension that we feel, our children can read it, and they know exactly how we're doing internally. And in reality, what they really need is connection, soft, warm connection. And I love that you've tried to find playful ways to do this. So And this is what we would call an emotional project. So it's something that, might take a little bit of time, but I think it can make some great progress. So the first thing I would recommend after listening time is, again, I would also recommend special time, because what I'm hearing is that this transition from, being in her safe, warm home environment out into the world is a scary experience for her for whatever reason, and then we're adding tension for the parents, the adults, on top of that, right? Because it's frustrating for us to try to get this child out of the house who's not cooperating. And so we want to help her to start to, to feel you at a deeper level, so that she can adjust and adapt to like this shift from going, so it's not so scary for her to go from this warm home environment out into the world. And so, sorry, I'm reading other comments here, but, so I would start with special time so that she can, again, create, because what happens is that as that transition happens, connection is breaking for her. And so when connection breaks, our limbic brain, which is the social emotional center of our brain, tells our thinking part of her brain not to work. So that's why she's not able to like put her shoes on or get dressed or do those things, is because she's not able to think clearly. And so what we want to do is help to build up that internalized sense of connection, fill her connection cup, so that her thinking, her limbic brain doesn't flood so easily, and her thinking part of the brain can work more. So special time can do that. It can start that process to help her feel, have a felt sense of you and more connection, so it's not so easily broken. That would be one step. The other thing I would recommend is I'd like you to take a look at play a little differently. So so rather than thinking of making things a game, think of play to connect and to create, as I explained play listening before, it's to create laughter for her, and to give her the more powerful role. So one of the ways that I've used play in my own family is I think of it as I pepper my morning with play. So and again, play means organic connection. Like play is the way I keep my children close to me so that they can function better more often, more of the time. And so the way that might look is, like, for example, getting dressed is, rather than counting to 10, it becomes, like you take a pair of pants and you're like, ooh, here's your pants. Do they go here? And then you put them on your child's head. Or, oh, good. These are ear pants, right? Because it's cold outside. We got to put these on your ears. And you're pretending to put them on your child's ears. Or, oh, did they go on your elbow? These are arm pants, right? And like you just put them in goofy places on your child or on yourself. You could be, I think these fit me. Don't these look nice? So you can put them on yourself as well. But the whole idea is to create laughter. So that's that first step, in creating the laughter. And then as you get that laughter going, you keep getting that laughter going. The child will oftentimes respond of like, no, mommy, they go here. And so them having the more powerful role, your daughter having the more powerful role, would be her putting the pants on. Like that's going to be what she really wants to do, because she wants to show you how capable she is. And that laughter has helped to break up the tension about going into that transition process. And so you can use that, over and over again for each step of the way. And I will also, there might even be something on our website. I think that someone has written about playful ways about getting out of the house that can be really helpful for you as well, to give you some more ideas. And I've also noticed a relationship between like the amount of listening time I get and my ability to be playful. And so, because it's exhausting trying to make things happen, right? And we've got all these things to do. And so, in order to find our own funny bone, find our own way to be, playful and fun and have laughter is hard to do. So being listened to can really help us to create that capacity. And then you also have just one little tiny comment. We're really out of time here since this is a 30-minute broadcast. But the one last comment is to get to also stay listened. And so what you do is you set an expectation for your child. It's time to go, sweetheart. And you do it with warmth. And then you let your child have the big feelings, because those big feelings are directly related to her inability to, transition from home going to outside. So that would be another process that you could look at as well. So we're out of time here, and I see there are a lot of questions, and I just really, hopefully we'll do more of these, and I can do more of these, and hopefully I can connect with you all at another time. Just to also know that there's some links that are being shared here as well I have an online starter class that's starting in February. If any of you are in Denver, I have two free talks coming up in January. And one is going to be on setting limits, and the other one's going to be on positive communication. And I also have a 6-week starter class beginning in January 26th as well. So you can find that all, either there's links that will be provided if you want more information on any of that. So I really appreciate being here today. I love the work of Hand in Hand and all the amazing support that it provides and the shift it provides in helping families be closer and do well together too. So thank you so much, and I hope to connect again another time. Bye.